Now we have everything we need to go a little bit deeper with intents. But let's sum up the basics of intents first. So you know that there are two categories of intents, explicit and implicit. With explicit intents, you specify the class to load. That's what we have done in the previous chapter. With implicit intents, you specify the action to be performed on a piece of data, and it's Android that will define what class can do the job. And this is called the intent resolution mechanism. Now I will need to introduce a new concept, the broadcast receivers. Any application can register a broadcast receiver that will listen and react to certain intents. For instance, your application can register a broadcast receiver that will listen to system events like an incoming phone call. This way your application can react accordingly. Now let's see examples of explicit and implicit intents. And let's start with explicit intents. That's the example we have right here. So we have created an intent. We explicitly said that we want this activity, and we start the activity right here. So what this is doing is starting a new activity, putting it on the top of the activity stack, and if the user presses the back button on the telephone, or if the new activity call a method called finish, then we are back in the initial activity. And now implicit intents. Those ones are resolved at the execution time. And here you let Android define what is the best class to perform an action. Let's say that you want to let the user make a call directly from your application. Well, you don't need to implement the dialing action. You have a telephone number, you know what to do with this telephone number, you want to dial it. That's enough information. And now I'm going to change this piece of code to create an implicit intent. So I'm going to remove this. The action is going to be action. In this case we want to dial something. So dialing something. And something here is a URI. So we're going to create a URI with URI.parse. I need to provide a string, which can be, for example, this telephone number. That's it, that's all. We have created an implicit intent just here. And here the URI is a telephone number, but let's imagine for a couple of seconds that this URI is the telephone contact book. And let's see what kind of actions we can have on a contact book, what would make sense. So let's just look what is available here. Well, we can still dial. Dialing an entry of the contact book is making sense. We can do one of the most common action is usually view, just here. So that would brings us to the contact book list. We can use also edit if we want to edit the contact book. We can use insert in the case we want to add a new name. We can use pick if we just want a list of contacts and we want the user to select one. We can use search just here. So you see that on the contact book there are a lot of actions that are making sense. And you also see that you can save a lot of time because you're going to reuse some existing code from the operating system itself. We have also seen how to start a sub-activity. In other words, an activity we are launching but from which we are expecting some feedback or some data back. So let me go back to the code we had previously here. right here. And the only thing we have to change to launch a sub-activity is not using start activity, but start activity for result. And here we need to provide some kind of ID, a sub-activity number. Sub-activity number. And in activity 2, so in this class, here we're doing a set result OK, and we're doing finish. But here it could be also interesting to know what intent launched this activity 2. And to know that, here we are going to create an intent. I will just name it L, and I will here use a get intent. And you know that in an intent there is an action and some data. It could be also interesting to get this action and get this data. That's what you can do this way. Get action, and the data is an URI, so we can do data equal intent dot get data. Well, actually here it's not intent because I named it L. And I think here also it's L.getAction, of course. Okay, and here basically this activity 2 is just returning a status, result OK. And what if we want to return some more data? Well, now you know that data in this case equal URI, so we're going to create a new URI and we'll name it result URI, and we're going to create a new URI with the method we've seen, parse. So we're going to return something. And what if something is not enough? Well, you can always add some extra data. And yes, I mean it, extra data. But first, we're going to return an intent. So let's create it. And we'll name it result. And we're going to say that it's a new intent. And we're going to provide the result res URI here. So we're going to return this intent. And what about the extra data? Result dot, you have a put extra here. Put extra, I need a name and a value. So the name, it's let's say it's a constant that I've predefined, which is not necessarily the case here. And the value, let's say that it's a boolean, true. And with that setup, now instead of returning an empty intent here, I can return a more complex intent that will contain not only a URI but also an extra parameter, and I still have my status right here. By the way, about this status, you can return whatever you want, but usually it's either result underscore OK or result underscore cancelled. And if this activity 2 doesn't end correctly or crashes, then in this case it's going to return a result cancelled. It's automatic, you don't have anything to do for that. So once again, if this activity crash or fails, then activity 1 is going to return to receive a result cancelled. So now how activity 1 is going to get that result, this intent, how is it going to get it back? Because here the only thing I will get will be the status. What I will do here, and activity, yes, here. I will override another method, public void on activity result, on activity result. And here I will have three parameters. First, an integer, a request code, then a result code, and then a data. The result code will be this result underscore OK or result underscore cancelled. Okay, I think I'm not showing the right one. This result code will be either result OK or result cancelled. This request code will be equal to this one that you set up right here. And then you're going to receive an intent that here is data. So you will be able to do URI result equals data.getData. And you will also be able to do mail equal data.get boolean extra, and the name we set up here, I think, is mail. So that's how you're going to get back this boolean. So I know it's a lot of information. It's also a lot of different concepts. And the best way to learn those concepts is probably to see them in action. That's why we're going to build an example in a few minutes. But before that, I need to introduce another concept, the intent filters. So let's have a look on how to register an application component as an intent handler. That's how your class is publicly going to mention to the entire world that there are a couple of things it can do. Well, even when you have a very simple skeleton application, there are already things that the application can do. One of them is starting and being present in the application launcher, you know, the main menu, I would say, on the phone itself. And those are intent filters. So that's what we're going to check right now. And for that, we're going to go in the manifest file, Android manifest.xml. And so that's not the skeleton application, because this application has a second activity. But let's forget about it just for now. And you see that here we didn't do it. The system did it when it created this skeleton. We have an intent filter section. And if we check here, applications, here you have the corresponding graphical version, intent filters, and see that you have those two lines here. They correspond to those two here. When you set up an item in the intent filter, you always have two pieces of information. First, an action, and then a category. You can have a third piece of information that would be the data. So the action first. Action here is android.intent.action.main. It is basically a name, and you make it whatever you want, but usually you just prefix it with the name of your package, or here it's an Android prefix. So once again, basically the name of your action. Then you have a category. So let's see what other options we can have here. We have alternative, browsable, car dock. We have different categories. We're not necessarily going through all of them. We'll just use them and define them when needed. as long as we go in this chapter and the following ones. The two you need to remember right now is default, this one. When you set the category as default, it means that you have some data. You will specify some data, which is not the case here. You're going to specify some data or data type, and you say, you know what, Android, if you need to do something on this type of data, I should be the default software component to do that. That's for default. And here we didn't have default. If you remember, we had launcher. This means that this activity, so this is we are in activity 1, this activity must appear in the application launcher. So it will basically appear with all the other applications so that you can simply see it, see the logo, and start it. And then here you can specify some data or data type, but we will see that in the future with examples. Now, when you have created some intent filters, so once again you're letting Android know that you're a candidate to basically do something, and you specify what you can do and on what kind of data type you can do this thing. But there may be more than one candidate, and how Android is going to do what we called this intent filter resolution. Well, first, if the intent is explicit, it's a no-brainer. We know what class to launch, and the only candidate is the good one. When it is an implicit intent, then Android will have to select the best candidate if there is more than one. Once again, if there is only one, it's a no-brainer. For that, Android will first get all the different candidates from all the installed package that could possibly match the request. From this list, Android will remove all the intents that do not match the data tag, the data section if you prefer. And then Android will use ranks based on a tag that we have not seen here. It's a priority tag. So if you have, for example, two mail software, of course both those components can send email out, and when your application will have to send an email, during the intent resolution there will be two candidates. If they can both send that kind of email, Android will just choose the one that has the highest rank. So maybe you will think that it should be, or it would be, the native component. Well, not necessarily. Native components are part of this process, this intent resolution process, at exactly the same level as your components, with no extra priority. So this means that your components can really completely replace they can really replace some of the native component of Android, and you can have a lot of fun doing that. Well, that was a lot of talk, and actually a lot of different concepts mixed together. Now we're going to build an example together. So we're going to restart from scratch an application, and we're going to create a new sub-activity that services the pick underscore actions, the pick action. It's going to service the pick action for contact data. It will display each of the contacts in the contact database, and it will let the user select one and only one. Then it will close, and before closing it will return the contact URI to the calling activity. A new Android project, contact select, Android 2.1, application name contact select, package name com.contact Vox Island, and the activity will be contact select. So what it means also is that I can just close that, don't need to save it. No. And no. So where is it? Contact select, right here. So we're going to open as well the layout, main.xml. And we are going to actually get rid of this text view that we don't really need. And instead we're going to create a list view for the contact list. List view, layout with fill parent, layout 8 wrap content, and let's set up an ID and let's name it contact list, or maybe contact list view to be consistent. Here we go, saving. And now in this layout directory I will want to create a new XML file. It's gonna be a layout, and I will just name it list item layout.xml. That layout will just contain a text view that will be used to display each contact in the list view. So linear layout, perfect. List item layout here. So we will want this linear layout to have a vertical orientation and fill parent and fill parents here as well. And we said that in this linear layout the only thing we want is a text view. Layout width fill parent, layout height wrap content. Let's set up an ID. And let's name it item text view. And let's have some maybe some padding here, and why not 5 pixels. And maybe we could also change the text size to make it a little bit bigger, since there will be only one name here. So what about 20 pixels? And I can close this text view right now and save. So now I can go back here in the contact select activity, and right here we're going to receive an intent. So I'm going to create this intent and do the get intent we've seen previously. I'm importing the class, and we're going to extract the data path from the calling intent. Maybe I should have named it calling intent, but too late. too late, too lazy. Data path equals so intent dot get get data, and let's make that a string. Now what we can do is creating a new data URI for the people stored in the contact list, and simply bind it to the list with something we have seen previously, an array adapter. Let's do that. Final URI data equals, so we're going to create a URI with the parse function once again, and of course here we're going to reuse the data path, correct, and we're going to concatenate that with people, and we're going to create, whoops, better this way, and we're going to create a cursor. We're going to name it C, and we're going to say that it's a managed query, and data null. So just to grab all the people. We can now create an array of strings. We'll name it from. So it equals new string array, and it's gonna be people dot name with a capital name, and we're going to create an array of integer. We'll name it 2. It's a new array of integer, and here we're gonna provide r.id. Let's let's get it from where it is. Item text view. So now we can use our cursor and our adapter. So we're going to create a simple cursor adapter that we'll name adapter equals, it's a new, of course, simple cursor adapter. I'm going to import that class, it's going to be easier, and the context, then r dot layout dot list item layout, then providing the cursor, then the from, and then the to, semicolon. Well, actually, adapter is adapter. Okay, fair enough. And we can, of course, create a list view object. It's a list view that we'll get with the find view by ID and r.id contact list view, and we're going to bind this view with the adapter we have created. Set adapter, and we named it adapter. So I'm saving. Well, that looks good. Can now create a listener for this list view. So list view dot set on item click listener, and new on item click listener. I'm importing the missing uh, class and adding the unimplemented method. Okay. Well, actually, I would like this to be here. And as usual, I will rename the arguments. This one is going to be parent. This one, I will name it view. This one, it's the position of the item clicked. And this one is going to be the ID. Okay, now when I have an item clicked, I can move the cursor to the selected items with c.move to position, and the position is not position, in our case it's pos, POS. Now I can extract the row ID, it's an integer, row ID equals c dot get integer, the column index now, so c dot get column index. I will do column index or throw just in case of ID. Okay, there may be a little extra thing here. So I have the row ID, and I can build the URI that I want to return. So it's a URI. I'm gonna name it out because I'm going to return it. Out URI, and we're going to use the parser. And here we're going to do data dot to string plus we're going to add the row ID dot to no, row ID, that's enough. Okay, with that done, we can create an intent out data. It's a new intent, of course. We can set the data, so it's out URI that we've just created, and we're done. We're going to do the set result, and obviously it's activity.result OK, because everything went well here, and we provide the intent here. So everything went OK, we're done, we can set finish here. Fixing some indentation, not intentation. Okay, done. Now that we're done with this piece of code, we're going to modify the application manifest and replace the intent filter tag of the activity to add support for the pick action. Okay, I need to open it. It was not already open. And read manifest.xml. Here it is. So I'm going to change this main by, so we said pick, and no launcher here, but a default. It's the default piece of code for the pick. And we're going to specify data. So first time we see that, data. The path, well, contacts, and well, let's do that this way. The path and the scheme, which is content. Alright. And then it's the end of the intent filter. That's good. So I can save that. And now we are completely, totally done with this sub activity. Now, does it work? Is it doing the job? And here I'm going to leave you with two options. First one, you trust me. And the second one, you don't trust me. And if you choose not to trust me, which is okay with the option you should use, then you're going to have to work a little bit and try my code. This is going to be your exercise for this lesson. I'd like you to rewind this chapter a little bit, create this activity as I did it in your Eclipse, this activity, the layout, and also the changes in the Android manifest.xml file. And then when you're done, I'd like you to write another activity by yourself that will use my activity as a sub-activity and make sure it's correct and providing the right service. I will not hide the truth. It's probably going to be the most difficult exercise of those tutorials. So it's okay if, one, you find it difficult, two, it will take some time for you to figure everything out, and three, you get some help by reviewing, Googling and reviewing some examples over the web. I know it's not trivial, but doing everything for you would not help you. You need really to face the different issues and find ways to resolve them by yourself. Good luck.